Peace, love, and light, everyone. This is Ashaki Mayat Marimbe Ali, better known as a True Lioness, and I'm coming to you with a just a little short video to discuss the Michel'e movie and how it relates to me. And I just wanted to share some wisdom from someone that has been through a lot, which most of us have. So I apologize first of all for the lighting situation. I promise you that soon enough my videos will be um, more well lit and in a better. But I'm dealing with some technical issues and I need to make some replacements as far as equipment is concerned. But it is what it is. You still will get the message, and so it's not all about being top notch as much as it is me trying to share some information with those that may need to hear it. So I watched the movie Surviving Compton the other night. I thought it was a well put together movie. But when I was watching the movie, of course, it made me kind of go back in time to a time when I was an abused woman. Um, and I'm going to just share a little bit about my experience as far as that. It was very severe. So when I was 19 years old, I married a man that I had known for about 4 years. Sometime I was like 14, and he was 20. We dated. We had been dating since I was 18, and I pretty much married him under duress. Um, what happens is typically abusers are very manipulative, and I was very young. I came from a dysfunctional family. My father was killed when I was 14 years old, also, well, right before I turned 14. And I had dealt with a lot of loss. My little brother died 2 weeks after my father um, from illness. I ended up being uprooted and placed into a town, a city, what have you, where I was the new kid, and I was a ninth grader at that point, and it was pretty tumultuous. I became a teenage mom at the age of 16. The father and I did not have a relationship. That was another negative situation, and my household life was very difficult. My mother struggled with substance abuse issues, and it was just not a good situation for a young lady trying to navigate in a ghetto. It was hard, and that I'm not, this is not a sob story at all. This is a story of how I became a lioness to begin with. I just didn't know who I was at that point. Nevertheless, when I was 18, well, me and the young man, we were 14, he was 15. I met him when I was visiting, well, my mother was visiting friends, and I wanted to go and explore on my own. I was a street kid, and what I mean by that is at 14, I had been in the drug game. I had hustled. I had already, experienced a lot. After my dad died, I kind of started rebelling a whole lot. So I was like a loose cannon for a while. But I met him, and we dated for a little while during that time, but it was nothing serious. And then I didn't see him for a while. So then I ended up moving to the city where he lived. Um, and we dated again, but again, it didn't last. So then when I was 18 years old, um, I was actually in another relationship. And one night he came up and me and him started chit chatting. But long story short, we started being together. We were a couple. And initially it was all good. Everything was gravy. So I moved on my own when I was 17 years old. I had my own spot. I had my own vehicle, and I was working. I was actually in nursing school at this time when he and I began dating. I was in practical nursing school. So, like I said, at first, he has the gift of gab, and he was a total gentleman. We enjoyed a lot of the same things, and it was all good. But then he began to become obsessive with me. So anyone that personally knows me knows I'm pretty free spirited, meaning that I don't like to be one location too much. If I'll do things on a whim. That's just how I am. I go with the flow. So if I get up today and I say, you know what, I feel like going to the park, I'm going. I don't have to plan it out. It's been times when especially when I was a younger woman, when I was in my early 20s, I would literally, if I had a weekend and I wasn't working, I would jump in the car and drive to Maryland, go to New York, go whatever. I just would, that's just how I am. Children have kind of settled me a little bit more, but I'm still pretty much that way. I'm pretty much, yeah, I'm with it. Somebody like, let's go do blah, blah, blah. If it's not anything that's going to go against my integrity as who I am, sure, I'll do, I'm with it. If I'm free, I'll do it. So nevertheless, I wanted to go with my girlfriends out. He called me when I got home. Well, he had been calling when I got back home because we went out to a club. And when I got back home, I had like 20 some odd messages, and I'm like, what is this? So I started listening to the messages, and each one was him. I'm worried about you. I hope you are right. This and this. As an 18-year-old woman, I was flattered because I felt like, dang, somebody cared. Coming from a situation where you feel like no one cares and going into a situation where somebody is overly caring, you don't see the red flag. So I didn't think that was a red flag, someone being so overzealous. I mean, this was within like a 2 or 3 hour period. He done called my phone like 20 some odd times. And this is not before cell phones, but he didn't. I had a cell phone. I did have a cell phone. I was a little bit balling. But anyway, he didn't have that number, so he was calling my home phone. So I kind of fell back on going out with my girlfriends as much because I wanted to please him. So the first instance of physical abuse, it happened in my mother's home. He had called and asked if I could come over. And I told him, I said, nah, I'm not, I didn't want to be up under him every day. And I'm still that way. If I have a man, I'm not a person that is very clingy like that. I want to know you good. But if we don't live together, I don't necessarily have to see you every day to be secure in that relationship. And even as a younger woman, I was the same way. So that particular day he wanted me to come over, I really wasn't feeling it. I had, studying to do, and my son needed some things, and I wanted to spend some time with him. So I told him, nah, I'll see you tomorrow. So when he came over, he was heated the next day. And he grabbed me up around my, yoked me up by the washing machine area, and I was terrified because I had never been done that way before. But I really didn't. I was like, maybe, his feelings was hurt. I really didn't know how to process what happened. So then the next day he comes to my home, and he has roses, chocolates, balloons, and stuffed animals, and he's like so apologetic. And I really, felt he was sincere. I still feel like he was sincere because he was young as well and sick at the same time. But anyway, I forgave him. So then his control of my life and of me became more and more and more intense. So we married. One day we were talking, well, he asked me to marry him. He brought me a ring. I said yes. But we were planning a wedding. And one day he looks at me. I had a sweater. I'll never forget. I had this navy blue sweater. And it had like a little pattern across here. And I had some blue jeans on. I just remember this. This is crazy. I'm just describing my outfit. But I had just a regular sweater. This is October at the time. It was kind of cool. I had some jeans on. He and I were walking. And he looked at me. We had already had the marriage license. They'll issue the license before the ceremony. He looks at me. He says, if you're going to marry me, you're going to marry me today. He said, if you real about this, you're going to marry me today. And the look in his face and then what had already happened, I felt threatened by him. And I was like, if I say no, he probably would kill me, And if I just don't know what else to do. So we went through with it. We went to the Justice of the Peace and got married. When I got back to my mother's home, my mother said, you made a huge mistake. You're too young to be married. But I was an adult and I had already been on my own for 2 years. So I really didn't. And with her, to be honest with you, I didn't feel like she was the authority at all about conducting life just because of how I had come up and the things I had experienced being her child. So, I still was on this rebellious kick. The next year was the worst year, or one of the worst, of my life. I literally was beaten every day, from a choke to a slap, and eventually it went to closed fist kicks. I mean, it was awful. And when I was looking at Michel'e, I heard, I saw people posting on Facebook about, you know, um, she's a fool to stay there. Take that. But let me tell you something. Criminal domestic violence itself, it breaks your spirit down to the point that your will to fight back or to do something changes drastically. It even will diminish. It will diminish over time because a lot of abusers, they not only physically abuse you, but they also emotionally abuse you. They play mind games. They're very manipulative, and they will make you think a few things: that nobody wants you, it's your fault, they didn't mean it, they'll threaten to kill themselves if you leave them. They play mind games with you. And as a young woman at 19 and 20 years old, I wasn't thorough like I am now. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't, if a dude was to tell me today, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself, I'd be like, you know what? I'm sorry you feel that way, but whatever you choose to do with your life, it's not my responsibility to make sure you live. I have to make decisions based on what's best for me, and not only me, because now I'm a mother for my children. I was a mother then, but I only had one child, and I was very immature. I was growing up at the same time trying to raise him. So, and during that, the abuse, it taught me a lot. It showed me how strong I really am, number one. I could have lost my life. I ended up in ICU after one of the worst beatings ever. But I survived all of that. I went into a deep depression. At one point, I was abusing alcohol really bad because my mental state was so fragile. I'm getting a little bit choked up. But my nerves and everything was so frazzled and out of whack that I could literally not sleep. The doctor prescribed sleeping pills, Ambien, to be quite honest, and the Ambien did nothing. I would not rest. So I used to drink Hennessy straight out of the bottle. I used to collect bottles. Matter of fact, I threw all those away some years ago, but I used to collect bottles, and I would sit there and I would drink Hennessy straight out of the bottle until I was so inebriated that I passed out. And, I became what I like to call a man eater. I had no desire to be anybody's boo, woman, nothing. I just dated dudes, tossed to the side, they call me, I wouldn't answer. If I felt like it, maybe I would, And that was all me trying to get over the traumatic situation experience I had gone through. I realize now that I probably suffer from some post-traumatic stress syndrome, to be quite honest. I have woken up with his hand around my throat. I could not be who I was genuinely as a person. He had an issue with the way I dressed. I couldn't go anywhere, alone. Unless, he dropped me off at work and he would pick me up. I had no use of my own vehicle most of the time. It was very, very difficult, but I still survived. And so I look at Michel'e and her story of overcoming all that she had gone through, and I related to her a lot in that regard. No, I didn't abuse prescription pills, but the alcohol, most definitely. Most definitely. And to show you how, kind of not show you, but to illustrate how far I've come. So earlier this year, I, was on my way back to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I was living at the time. And I was cleaning my vehicle out because my children had put a lot of sand in the car because we were out in a country, a rural area or whatever. And so when they got in, there was a lot of sand and dirt and stuff. So I wanted to clean the car up before we got on the road to go back to Charlotte. And I heard someone call my name. And initially when they called my name, which they called my birth name. Let me clear that up. My birth name is Andrea. So someone called my name. It didn't register at first. But when he said it again, I knew exactly who it was. It was my ex-husband, the abuser. So he walks. He doesn't come over to where I was, but he stands. You know how the car washes have each little, area for cars. So he was in the one beside where I was, and he stood over where he was because I do have a restraining order against him. Even though I'm not fearful of him at all at this point. And he says, "Damn, you looking good." And I said, "And you're not." I said, "You're looking old and worn down." Because he's gained a ton of weight. He's bald. He looks very old. And he's only, a year older than I am. And I'm 35. So, nevertheless, he said something else. And I kind of just didn't even want to hear it. And I said, what do you really want? Because we don't have anything to discuss. And he says, "Dag, it's like that." And I said, you really are detached from reality. You really are detached from reality. Do you not know, the trauma that you caused in my life? I said, "But you see my face? I look very happy and peaceful, don't I?" And he kind of looked at me and dropped his head, and I said, "In spite of." And I left it at that. Went back to doing what I was doing. See, that's when you are able to look evil in the face, that used to really harm you and not feel any, because I feel no fear at all. I used to be very fearful of him. I have no fear of him at all. When you can look that in the face, and you are peace and calm within yourself, and you can look in the mirror and love yourself for who you are, and allow yourself to love again, and to also be that ear for other women that may have been going through, you won. You victorious. I was the lioness 16 years ago. I just didn't know it then. I didn't understand it. Now I do. I totally under, and most of all, understand who I am. So this message is, partly to share. I know I usually talk about other topics, but I felt it was important to share a little bit of myself with you. If this helps someone, wonderful. If you're going through that, there is help for you. I'm here. You can email me. You can message me. And I'll be glad to talk to you about, things that I did to escape that situation. Now, he did end up going to prison, but I had to do some things before that occurred. I used to keep changing clothes in my car, stuff, things like in that regard. I had safe houses I could go to and things such as this. But don't be silent about what's going on. Don't cover up for them. Expose them. Seek help, because you can literally lose your life. I'm a living witness because I almost lost mine. So anyway, I know this is a heavy message, but it is a necessary message, because women and men are still being abused. Domestic violence is no joke. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So this is, pertinent to this month. It's very important to discuss these things, and I'm open enough to do that. I have no shame about anything that I've gone through. I give of myself to my people to help my people. Revolution, the revolution is not what some people think. It's not all about, banging on the beast. Sometimes the beast live with you and lay in the bed with you. The abuse that goes on in these households is a direct result of what happened to us on those plantations. That that's common knowledge. Um, and some men need to deal with the rage that they have. I know it's hard out here for some of them, being unemployed or underemployed, and your woman's making more money, and your children don't respect you, the community doesn't respect you, people looking at you as though you whatever. I get it, but it's tough on the queens as well. We have to be a sex pot in the bedroom. We have to be the professional out in the streets. We got to be mommy. We have to be sister. We got to, it's a lot that goes with everything, but we have to find positive ways to deal with, more constructive ways to deal with whatever issues we have going on. Putting your fist up against someone's face, kicking someone and all pulling hair, and that's just not the way to be. We need to honor and respect each other's temples, body temple. We got to love on one another, and we have to find ways to fight this fight together, not fighting each other. We're never going to move forward until we fix these relationships between us, the black man and the black woman. We got to fix it because it's a mess. But I'll save that for another day. I hope, like I said, I hope my story encouraged someone. Because look at me. You can be the same way. You can find your peace as well. Peace is priceless. And nobody, no one should be allowed to disturb or take your peace. This has been Ashaki Mayat Marembe Ali, better known as the True Lioness. I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Peace and blessings to you.